Is Trump, who's a player, being played? Every time Donald Trump does something good, and there's a lot of good stuff that I can stand behind that he does, he seems to follow it up with total, almost random insanity. I have no kind of word for it. At least that's what it looks like from where I'm sitting. Hello and welcome to another video where I'm talking about some political issues that might be of some importance or some interest to you. When I look at Trump, whom I voted for 3 times, the first 2 times with great enthusiasm, and the third time a little less enthusiastically, but consider the alternative. And while I admire a lot of the moves he's making, I think he's making a lot of the right moves, some of these moves make me wonder if he's actually mentally all that stable. He seems to be a little bit all over the map. But judge for yourself. Trump's initial stance on this whole nasty Ukraine business seems rather promising compared to anything we've seen under the Biden administration. It seems like Trump is pulling back from global conflicts and he's focusing on peace instead. I mean, Trump said, and I tend to believe him, that he wants to be known as the president of peace. No new wars, no forever wars. Not get America entangled in endless forever wars or quagmires like, can you say Vietnam? Can you say Afghanistan? Can you even say Iraq? And a bunch of other wars that we seem to easily get into, but never really get out of. And if we do, we leave behind a mess. After 4 years of a horrible administration, no diplomacy, no statesmanship, no statecraft, nothing that is worthy of an actual modern-day administration, Trump seems like a fresh breath of air. So after all these 4 years of utter and total disaster, I mean, even during the height of the Cold War, where there's the Cuban Missile Crisis, all of these, the empire of evil, as Reagan used to call it, we still had well-staffed embassies in Washington and Moscow and in other places. We talked to each other and had John F. Kennedy, and at the time Nikita Khrushchev, the Soviet premier, not talked to each other in 1962 during the Cuban Missile Crisis, we wouldn't be having this conversation because we'd all be dead. And we came even closer, probably by an order of magnitude closer, just when Joe Biden decided last year that he was going to give long-range missiles to the Nazi Ukrainians. And I call them Nazi Ukrainians. I use that word advisedly because they're not neo-Nazis. They're not figurative Nazis. They're actual hardcore, card-carrying, goose-stepping, swastika-wielding, the right hand raised kind of Nazis, also known as Banderites, named after Stepan Bandera, who in the time of the real Nazis, the other Nazis, was very active in murdering 250,000 Ukrainians, Poles, and other people in the most bestial ways you can possibly imagine. The SS sometimes was appalled. They couldn't even handle what he was doing. That's the patron saint of the Ukrainians. And they still have monuments to him, even in, say, the state of New York. And we let them. That said, Trump was going to end all this. We had no diplomacy. If you look at Blinken or all these other poor excuses for politicians, Secretary of State, that guy, Blinken, Biden, really? Brandon? These people are hapless, clueless, and they're also stone-cold psychopaths. Now say about Trump what you will, but at least he's talking to the Russians. What a concept. Talk to your enemies. Talk to your adversary. Are we actually really enemies? Why are we hating the Russians? Well, because the Russians are evil. Well, yeah, the Soviet Empire, I get it. But that was a long time ago. Russia now has values and virtues, family values. They're an actual Christian nation. Russian Orthodoxy is a very real form of Christianity, a very good form of Christianity, which I actually like. It's not moralistic. It's not hypocritical. It's very real. These people believe in something. Putin brought, after 7 years of an utter and total disaster of a drunkard named Boris Yeltsin, who actually fired tank shells into his own parliament, killing members of the Duma. That guy, when Russia was at the brink of utter and total collapse, where the average life expectancy of a man was 49 years old. After the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1992, millions of Russians died from starvation, just like in World War II. Yeltsin sold out Russia, its resources, its people, to Wall Street, war profiteers and other people, carpetbaggers as we call them here in the South. He sold out to them and gave literally all the Russian resources, all the Russian stuff away for pennies on the dollar to greedy Wall Street sharks. Along entered Vladimir Putin. He looked at this and he said, we're about to go under. We're gone. We're done. And then he single-handedly, from 1999 on, kicked out all these profiteers, kicked out Wall Street, kicked out the Western profiteers, and single-handedly rebuilt Russia and snatched it from the jaws of utter and total annihilation. Now Russia is a democracy. It's not an autocratic dictatorship. Putin is not a thug. How many countries has Russia invaded? Please tell me. How many countries? I want to know. How many countries has Russia invaded? We don't even know. If you ask the Pentagon, you get anywhere between 800 and 1,000 military bases, forward bases around the globe. We have bases everywhere. We have like a dozen in Germany alone. We have more bases than you can shake a stick at. We don't even know how many friggin' bases we have. And they cost real freaking money. And there's people that are really exposed to danger. We have close to 1,000 military bases. You know how many Russia has? 7. So who's the aggressor? How many countries have we invaded? Just in my lifetime. Oh, let's see. Oh, pretty much Iraq, this, that, Grenada. You know, a ton. How many countries has Russia invaded? Oh, that's right. None. Not one. What about Chechnya? What about Georgia? It was small little policing missions. Compared to when we go in, it's shock and awe. We bomb back in the Stone Age. So that's the backdrop. That's the backstory. Against that backdrop, tell me who's the real aggressor. In 1992, James Baker, then Secretary of State, shook hands with Mikhail Gorbachev and promised him, not an inch shall we expand NATO eastward, not an inch. Since then, dozens of nations have joined NATO, nations that didn't even need to join NATO. If you think that NATO is a defensive alliance, I have a bridge to sell. It's called the Brooklyn Bridge, and for $10 million, I even deliver it to your home. I wrap it up in gift paper with a nice little bow. Imagine, how cool would it be? You put that Brooklyn Bridge into your backyard, and when you have some cool chicks coming over, they say, is that the real Brooklyn Bridge? Well, yeah, I bought it from Orlando. It's the real Brooklyn Bridge. And if you believe that, then you probably believe that Russia has no other intention at reconstituting the Tsarist Empire or the Communist Empire or the Soviet Union, or wants to invade Europe. What they didn't want was mid-range missiles on their doorsteps that can reach Moscow in 3 minutes. They didn't want that. And they should have left the Ukraine a neutral country. That was on the table. But then come along Biden and Boris Johnson and other crooks and criminals, and they just throw it all out. Enter Donald Trump. After years and years of Russophobia, demonizing the Russians for absolutely no reason, no realistic reason. Oh, the Russians are evil. They kill civilians. No, the Ukrainians kill civilians. The Russians avoid that at all costs because the Russians are very by the book. They're pedantic to the point of being anal retentive. I wish they'd friggin' finished the job in the Nazi Ukraine quicker, but that would also cost a lot more lives on both sides. So the Russians just do a very methodical war of attrition. Along comes Donald Trump, says, hey, it's a shame. He's gotten the numbers wrong. He thinks 1 million Russians died and 700 Ukrainians. Actually, it's more of 1 million, 2 Ukrainians, and probably about around 90,000 Russians. It's about 11 to 1 is the ratio, the kill ratio. If you don't believe that, do your research. It's possible to find the real data. But Donald Trump seems to listen to the siren songs. Just like in his first term, he listened to scum like Malcolm Bolton and idiots like Mike Pompeo. We lie, cheat at the CIA. That's what we do. Yeah, that's right. That's what CIA does. I know. I should know about this. I have never worked at CIA, but I sure as hell have worked for and with CIA. So I know a little bit about the subject, yeah? Just saying. And I know how easy it is to be manipulated. And I think that Trump may be listening to the wrong people. Aside from the fact that they're all rabid Zionists and think Israel is fine killing tens of thousands of Palestinian civilians. But that's a different story. I have my issues with it, big issues. But again, I'm even more than that. I'm interested in preventing nuclear war, which we came perilously close more than once during 2024. And we have the potential. We had the great glorious idea of, by 2026, to put mid-range missiles onto German soil. Again, that can reach Moscow in record time. Probably faster than you can make a phone call from the red Kremlin telephone to the red telephone on Donald Trump's desk, or whoever may be present. These are real dangers, and Trump is listening to people who may be in the pocket of the military-industrial complex, and he's flip-flopping a lot. One day he says, I'll have this war finished in 24 hours. Yeah, how's that going, Donald? Okay, well, make that 8 months. Okay, great, wonderful. At least they're talking, and I think that's great. But then, the minute he does that, he turns around, he talks about mineral deals, he talks about ceasefires, he's talking about putting European troops into Ukraine, all of which the Russians say is an existential threat to the existence of Russia. And they're right. If you do your homework and you don't come to the same conclusion, you're not doing your homework right. This is the only logical conclusion. Yet, here's Trump. One day he says the right things. Yes, if you guys want to put those troops there, the Russians I don't think are interested. Pete Hegseth, J.D. Vance is saying all these things. Even little Marco Rubio, who used to be a never Trumper. All these people are saying some of the right things, and then the very next day, Trump has foot and mouth disease, says the exact opposite. We'll get these rare earth minerals, which happen to be almost exclusively controlled by Russia and not by the Nazi Ukraine. And then he flip-flops and he says, we'll put our people there, and then they can't attack them because, that would be an attack on us. One day he says there will be no Article 5 protection under NATO. The next day he says, we'll just do that. We'll just buy Gaza or whatever. So you tell me if this guy is really a stable genius, which I still am willing to entertain, which I still hope. And I hope that with all his bluster and bravado and all the foot and mouth disease that he seems to have, that's just tactics. You go in guns blazing for a big business deal. I get it. He's a real estate developer. And I'm hearing a lot of the right signals from him and his administration. Only the next day, suddenly you get like little Napoleon Macron, macaroni, go in there, then, Keir Starmer, as I call him, because his Nazi colors really are showing. And then they tell him something else, and he seems to listen to them. I hope that people like Tulsi Gabbard, who has the real intelligence, set him straight on the actual facts, that he has good advisors, because he has some really good people in his staff and his cabinet. I hope he listens to them. If you look at the Russians, if they were a ship and you look at their wake, it would be a straight line that you can set a ruler to. If you look at American diplomacy, let alone EU or Western or European diplomacy or lack thereof, or warmongering, it's all over the map. One day it's this, next day it's the very opposite. The third day it's the original message again with a twist, and then you never know what you're dealing with. And if I were the Russians, they're saying, look, these people are highly unpredictable, and unpredictability is not necessarily a hallmark of a stable genius. Trump's done more in the first 4 weeks or 5 weeks at the point of this recording than most administrations do in 8 years. That said, they usually follow a very clear line, and Trump's all over the place, and I'm a little worried. It could be that he's playing 5D chess. Perfect. He might. On a probably more realistic or mundane level, he may just be erratic. Maybe he has ADD. Maybe he jumps all over the place. I don't know what it is. I have ADD, in case you can't tell. And I'm very happy. I'm not suffering from ADD. I'm enjoying every minute. But I'm also not the president of the fucking United States of America. Just saying. I love my country. I'm an American citizen, I'm an American patriot. I have no other passports. I have no loyalty to any other country, not to Russia, not to Europe, not to any other place, not to Mars. I only care about America and what's good for America and American people. If we all die in a nuclear war, we're having a really bad day. And if we think we can take on the Russians or play games or hold them any leverage or threaten them, think again. Right now, Russia has, for better or worse, in many aspects, not in all, we're a forward military power, we have aircraft carriers, we have lots of jets and air power, which the Russians aren't a naval power. But they have lots of good submarines. They have lots of good tech. If you think the Russians only have 50s tech from the Soviet Union, think again. The Russians just introduced a 6th generation fighter jet, and it is more advanced than the F-35 by a long shot, and a lot more reliable. F-35 is in the hangar over 70% of the time. It's a hangar queen. It's not very good at what it does, and it's incredibly expensive. It costs $200 million a piece. The Russians can build the same shit for $20 million, and it's a better plane, and it's more reliable, and it probably has a 70 or 80% combat readiness. Just saying. So if you think the Russians are fighting with shovels and need to steal the chips from German washing machines for their fighter jets, like I said, that deal, $10 million for the Brooklyn Bridge, gift wrapped, home delivered. Tomorrow, by the way, it'll be free delivery. Tomorrow night, it'll be at your doorstep. All you have to do, and we'll give you the information here in my banking data, and all you have to do is wire me $10 million, and that bridge is at your door tomorrow. And allow an extra day for delivery if you're in Hawaii. So if I were the Russians, and if you see Lavrov, Putin and Lavrov, those are very measured people. You never see them have a temper. They never get dramatic. They never, fly off the handle. They never go like, Putin did this, Putin is a thug. Russia has already lost the war. Like Dark Brandon. But even Moscow sees this madness, and it's not very trust-inspiring. And we really do not want to keep the Russians guessing. Oh, Russia is just bluffing. It's just blah, blah, blah. They're every red line. Oh, Kiev in 3 days. You know who said that? You know who made that shit up? It was Mark Milley, Joint Chiefs of Staff, that just retired like a few months ago. And then his successor, General Brown, was also just fired. That's the people that made this shit up, okay? Putin never said it. Lavrov never said it. If you see Lavrov, that's somebody. If you see Putin and Lavrov, those are people who are following a straight line. They're very predictable. They never jump around. And they said very, very clearly, there shall be no ceasefire, because we've already been duped a few times. And all the ceasefire would buy. We're winning. Why would we agree to a fucking ceasefire? The ceasefire is something that the losing party wants, not the winner. And Russia is wiping the floor with the Nazi Ukraine. Wiping the floor. Oh, then why are they taking? Because the Russians don't need big, flashy air offensive. All they need to do is kill more of the other guys than themselves. And they're doing that extremely efficiently. Yes, it takes a long time, but the Russian military is one of the most powerful militaries in the world right now. It may be the most powerful military in the world. Certainly when it comes to ground forces. If we took every friggin' tank that we in the West have and put it right there on Ukrainian soil, we would still lose very badly. You can believe that. You don't have to. But it's the goddamn fucking truth, okay? Just so we're clear. It is the goddamn truth. If you believe it, if you think you know better, find out for yourself. Be an asshole, fine. But if I were the Russians and I see Trump saying one thing and then betraying his own words just a day later, I would start to wonder. I might even start to worry. I'm quite worried. I want to believe. But unfortunately, this is not the X-Files. I do want to believe. I really do. I want Trump to succeed. I want America to succeed. I want to be friends with the Russians, not enemies. Why should we hate these people? They have done nothing to us. We've robbed them blind. We've cheated them with the Minsk Accords. We had the Istanbul Accords. And every time, even Merkel and Hollande, the French president at the time, they all admitted we only used it as a ruse to cheat the Russians so we could build up the Ukrainian army, which is 100% Western built. And Russia is tired of being duped, being cheated. They don't trust us as far as they can throw the goddamn White House. And who could friggin' blame them? If you don't believe me, do your research. So you tell me, is Trump a stable genius, which I want to believe so bad I can taste it? Or is he being very influenced, and if so, by whom? That is my question for the day. And let me know in the comments down there what you think, what you believe. And maybe we'll find out what the truth is. That said, I wish us all peace and prosperity and good relations with the rest of the world. A concept. Take care.